Okay, I guess this thing is on. We are live on Facebook, you guys. I have no idea what that means.
I'm gonna
So
hop over there and see.
we're
Looks
we're
like
gonna.
Michelle just joined us there, Erica. We're gonna wait on a few other people here.
Hi, Michelle. I guess I'm gonna go ahead and resume my screen share. We're live on Facebook, Michelle, and we've never done this before. So we're gonna be live 3 minutes from now with the Now What news broadcast about education news during this crazy time, and maybe
Oh,
we're
I can see
broadcasting
I
out
just
to
got
the
the
entire
notification.
universe.
Yeah, I just got the notification on my Facebook here that you're going live. So I'm gonna post that myself here. So.
Well, that's pretty cool. We go live. I think I put in the chat box the link for people to register to get the link to join us on Zoom, which is probably better than joining us on Facebook Live. And I'm purposely, guys, I'm going to not watch Facebook while this is going on because.
No, I'll watch it here. It's fine.
Okay, okie dokie. I don't even know what it looks like when you broadcast live.
It just looks like a video, but it's embedded. And
It's embedded in the page, maybe. So there you go.
Yeah.
So this has been the smoothest Saturday morning we've had yet with this broadcast. That's our 4th week in a row broadcasting here from Rockstar quarantine headquarters. We're not at our home office. Is Michelle still with us? Michelle, you're with us. I'm going to unmute you, Michelle, because talking to myself is a whole lot less fun. Where are you joining us from?
Yeah.
Hi, where are you joining us from?
Hi,
She
North Carolina.
Do I have to she said North Carolina, Erica. Can you hear me? Sorry.
I can hear both of you, actually. So
okay, go ahead. I'm muting myself.
Michelle, you're from North Carolina.
Yes.
Cool. How are things going over there? I know North Carolina has been in the news about online education and adjusting to this stuff. What grade are your students in?
I actually have her here with me. She's a junior, so it's a pretty important year for her, and it's not going so well.
Well, tell us more.
Well, I guess they really can't learn anything new, so they're just going over stuff, right? Like review stuff, Ash. Didn't you say that?
Yeah.
And, you know, she's not quite sure where she's going to stand with like the AP testing and all. So we're a little stressed out about, you know, not knowing what's going to happen even with school restarting. Right now, our governor's going by May 15th, the CDC recommendation, which I'm hoping they might change.
Yeah. What would it theoretically have been the last day of school for you if you were to go back on May 15th? Was June 1st going to be your?
I think it's like the first weekend to June. Is it like the 9th, Ash, last day, something around that? Yeah, like the first week of June, they're pretty much done here.
So if you did go back to school on May 15th, you'd have 2 weeks of classes and then a week of final exams, right? Does that sound right to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have teachers who are teaching online using Zoom or some other conference to meet in class? What's class like for you these days?
All of it is optional right now, like optional work, and then they're gonna turn it into graded at some point.
Gotcha. So you're communicating with your teachers for sure.
Yeah, I'm communicating mainly with my AP teacher.
That's good. And doing review work for your AP exams, I bet. Yes?
Yeah.
Is your teacher sharing with you online resources for studying?
Mm-hmm.
Say yes or no.
So it's 10 o'clock on the dot. So I just want to sort of officially say welcome to the 4th episode of whatever we're calling this show, where we're reviewing the education news about school closures and test delays and how to handle college applications and college enrollment for this coming fall, since everything is different. I'm Erica. Actually, we have Michelle and Ash from North Carolina on the line. We've been chatting here in the beginning. Guys, I'm just going to ask you to just hold your thought for a second so we can sort of officially open the whatever we're calling this morning. And the reason for this is because I have the most amazing radio introduction. So I'm going to get off the screen. Michelle and Ash, stay with us. We'll be right back, okay?
Okay.
Okay. We're ready.
Good morning. Welcome to Q&A Saturday, another Rockstar webinar. I'm Gene Benson. Joining us via the internet is our co-host, Justin Hart. With more than 10 years of experience in higher education, Erica Gillette visited hundreds of college campuses and has been advising students since 2004. In 2017, Erica founded Rockstar Academics to give students and families a saner approach to choosing college. Today, she's on a mission to change the way American families approach education decisions and inspire them to dream big about their futures. At Rockstar Academics, students apply to colleges with the end in mind by deciding what they want first and then choosing the education that will get them there. As a result, they don't just get into college, they get into their own vision of their future. And here you are.
That's Gene Benson. He's my editor-in-chief. And we have Justin on the line. Hey, Justin.
Hi, good morning, all.
Justin's my co-host and business partner, and we're live now from just north of Lake Tahoe, Reno, Nevada. And just before we got started, hey, Justin, I'm going to give you the mic for a second. I bet you have wonderful things to say.
No, we're excited to have you here, Michelle. We have a couple people watching on Facebook. I know we're going to have some other people joining us. We're recording this more importantly so we can go out to the rest of the crew here. This is something that is facing a lot of people. Yeah, Michelle, I have a junior too, and we were planning to go up this week. In fact, I think today we were supposed to go see Stanford campus and Berkeley campus up in the Bay Area, and all of that went to pot. So lots of confusion, lots of questions about where things go, and we've had more and more information come in over the last 3 weeks since the shutdowns really started into play. Crimp down what they need to do, and that's why we think Erica has some really good insights into what's going to happen here.
Oh, great.
So just right now, a great mentor of mine says you should always give the good stuff right away so people know there's something worth staying for. So right here at the top, I want to go ahead and share with everybody. I'm going to put an address up. Anyone who joins us on these Saturday morning calls, I really encourage you guys to set up a phone call privately later so we can talk about your personal situation. So we're going to share that link in just a minute so you know where to go to get on my calendar and all that kind of stuff. But also, what I also want to share is a new resource that we've been working really hard to publish that's free, open on the internet, that's sort of an aggregation of all the education news, well, not all, but as much as I could find, the headlines in education news from around the internet. So headlines from the the Chronicle of Higher Education, from the New York Times, from, Education Week, all different kinds of industry sources. So we're kind of pulling it all together on this one web page where you can click on the link to go read those stories. So I'm also going to share that link in a minute where you can just go and read that stuff later. So the two big resources coming to you when we get our keyboards all arranged are the link to chat with me privately about your personal situation and the link to that news site that we're hosting at Rockstar Academics. Okay, so we'll come back to my big 5 announcements of the day later, but I want to go back to you, Michelle and Ashley, because I had asked you a question and then I totally interrupted you to go live. So we were talking, Ash, you're a junior in North Carolina, and I was really happy to be hearing you describe what school is like for you right now.
Oh, yep, I'm just grabbing her one. Okay, so she just wanted to know like what school was like right now for you currently. Just mostly from the AP teachers?
Yeah, I'm getting it from all of my teachers though now. It used to be AP and now all of them kind of reached out.
Probably in the last, how many days? A couple days ago?
A couple days ago, yeah.
Yeah, it took them a while to, get this all up and running with the online situation. And now it was supposed to be like spring break this week. So I'm not exactly sure. Are they still going to stay on schedule this week as much as possible since you've kind of been out?
I think my regular classes are going to treat it as like break, but like my AP teachers gave me like optional work.
Oh boy, so now we're going to get another little break, I guess.
So your AP teachers are on the ball, which is a good thing because the College Board has announced that, and this was actually, the College Board announced this a couple of weeks ago, that they are going to be conducting the AP exams, right, Ash? But the tests are going to be really different than you were expecting them to be at the start of the year.
Oh yeah, because I'm in AP Language and Composition, so the original testing format is 3 different essays. But before you do the 3 essays, you have to take 55 multiple choice questions. Yeah. And now my exam is just going to consist of 1 essay, I'm pretty sure.
Just 1 essay. Well, just 1 essay, and the students are going to have the opportunity for it to be open book, right? So you'll be able to look things up to write about, but the internet can't actually write your essay for you, right? So you're going to be doing that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This is very interesting. I've been working with senior high school students and college students for 15 years almost now. And writing is one of the things that's most challenging because it requires you to do a ton of critical thinking as well as have language and writing skills on top of that, right? So that's used to be the hardest part of the test. And then this year it's just going to be the entire part of the test, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Ash, when you're showing up for your online classes in Zoom, how many of your classmates are present? Is it a full class, everybody there, or just a small number?
So we have a block system, and there's like around 30-ish kids in my class. Sometimes like majority of them would show up, but then I know like some kids wouldn't because like it's optional. So there's probably like some people that are not taking it seriously.
It's been one of the things that they've been talking about in the press. There was a big headline in the New York Times just a couple of days ago about how students are not necessarily showing up for class because it's online and because it's optional. And so a lot of districts are also trying to figure out, is it happening because it's optional and the kids aren't there, or is it happening because the other students in your class don't have good access? So maybe they don't have good internet, or maybe they have low bandwidth, or maybe they don't have internet at all. And then is that why they're not showing up? I know a couple of weeks ago, we had another family here on with us from North Carolina, and we were talking about in their particular school district, something close to half of the families in that particular district didn't have internet access at all. So depends on, this has been the story over and over again every week, is that it's really hard to say what's going to happen because every single school district has its own very unique circumstances. So some districts in North Carolina are delivering laptops and wireless routers to families so they have access, and other school districts like the one I'm in, they're just dropping off printed paper packets for families so they have access to it that way. So it's really depends on where you are and what's available in your neighborhood, huh?
Yeah, I think that's the way they're looking at it. Like in her particular district, I wouldn't say having access to it is an issue, but I guess they have to factor in the whole state, that there's a lot of children in lower income places that may not have the access. Plus they've closed, obviously libraries. So even if they were using that as a resource at one time, they may have absolutely nothing at home.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's going to be a big conversation for a long time to come, because the honest truth, Michelle, Ash, do you have brothers and sisters, Ash?
Yeah, I have 2 sisters.
Are they older or younger?
Older.
Okay. One is currently in college, and she's doing her school switch to online. So they're pretty successful with handling that. I think at the college level, she's going forward. It just seems like, more at the high school level, it's not happening.
That's interesting. I would love to hear about her college experience too in a second. This is one of the things that that I have on the agenda to talk about today specifically. But if you go to the Big Q report, and we'll put the link, that's what we're currently calling the news site. You'll see several links talking about how different what's happening now in the schools isn't what we would really call online education. So online education is something that's been around maybe 10 or 15 years. I designed my first online class 10 years ago, which seems like it was a really long time ago for online learning, but it requires a really different kind of planning for education, and it requires a really different set of preparation skills and habits for a student in order for the learning to happen well in that environment, right? And you know, a lot of teachers have never done it, and a lot of districts have never required teachers to do it. A lot of teachers don't have training in it. So what's happening right now, you know, really nerdy people who really like to split hairs or say, this isn't online education, you guys, this is just emergency remote education, and we're patching it together. And it's way different than what online education can be, which is an incredibly rich, valuable, multi-layered experience. It can be better. And so, but what I just described isn't what's happening all over the country right now, right? So Michelle, your older daughter, you said they're doing a great job. You know, how is what she's getting from her college different than what Ash is currently getting as an emergency measure? Have you noticed differences?
Well, I just go by, she's in the house too now. She actually is a little unique situation. She's in a nursing program, and she had just started up clinical training, which is hands-on in the hospital. So she obviously can't do that. So now she's had to learn her clinicals in an online setting. And she says it's very challenging because it's supposed to be hands-on. So she's doing the best she can, but she really has no choice. They can't defer it. So she might not be the best comparison for the online. I mean, she's successful in the sense that she's learning the new material. It's not optional, and they're going forward with it. But she's definitely saying it's more challenging online to try to do this than to be in the actual hospital setting.
I can imagine that is tough. That is crazy. Erica, we got a few more people that joined us here. We got Jenny and Paula Coe. We have a few people watching us on Facebook too.
How cool is that?
Why don't we kick it off with some general questions? Again, if you guys have some questions, you can pop them in the chat channel. There's a few enough around here that we could probably open it up to, just as we are with Michelle, for any comments. So if you want to talk, just go ahead and pop in the chat section that you want to chat, or raise your hand. I think there's a way to do that. I can't remember how, but let's go quickly. I think one of the main questions we always saw there, and maybe I'll let you kick it off because I know you had some introductory comments there too, Erica. So why don't you go ahead and kick it off with your intro there?
So, so just to sort of summarize the news of the week, you know, the economy obviously is in a complete standstill. One of my academic backgrounds is in economics, so I get a little nerdy about economics. So, you know, the economy is at a standstill. It's definitely in a recession. But what we're experiencing right now is maybe not what is going to be forever, right? As long as the emergency and the crisis is undetermined, the economy people are just holding. So it's at a complete halt versus at a complete crash. Well, we don't really know, but it's definitely at a complete halt. There's no question that you know, the value of everything is in question, monetary value, right? So like the stock market is in complete flux. And I guess my major point is that education is financed by the economy, whether it's public school education or private liberal arts education or great big state flagship universities. All of those things are financed by the state of the economy. And in the past, higher education used to sort of fluctuate inversely with the economy. So when things were bad, higher education was doing well because people would go back to school when the opportunity cost of learning is lower. But in this situation, it's a little bit different because big state schools, public schools, they're financed by state budgets, which are being hurt by unemployment claims and lower predicted tax revenues for the following years. Major private schools like Harvard are supported and financed by their endowments, which have been slashed, of course. And then there's a third category of schools, which are mostly tuition-driven schools. And so they're financed by students coming to school and paying their tuition. And we don't really know what's going to happen with that either. So one of the things I'm going to talk about and give you guys some questions that you can ask about the school that you're considering to evaluate how healthy is that institution academically in terms of how well they may handle online transitions and how well they may handle student learning. How healthy is that institution financially? Are they going to be able to weather a really, really bumpy road ahead and still be there and able to provide the same quality of education you were expecting? How healthy are they socially and in terms of public health? Because
that is really interesting, Erica. So you're saying, like I remember when we first started this off, you mentioned maybe 20%, maybe as high as a third of a lot of professional higher end education things might be gone, whether that's an individual college on campus or an entire university. And so when you're evaluating schools, especially if you have a particular focus that you're already excited about, is that still going to be there in a year or two based on, you know, these sort of situations?
That's it. It's, you know, it's not, I don't like to be, I can't think of the phrase I'm looking for, so we'll skip it. But I don't want to predict overly dire consequences, but the honest truth is higher education has been in trouble for a long time. And so what we're going to see, what we're already seeing, are that schools that weren't managing themselves really well weren't well prepared to manage a crisis like this. I was listening to one of the cabinet members from Northeastern University in Boston, which is like one of the country's most elite schools. And, you know, he was saying, it's really interesting that, you know, in the past, we used to sort of look at the financial health of an institution at, do they have a great big endowment and do they have like this great big safety net of in endowment funds? And that would be an indication that the school was in really stable condition. And I loved it. He said he didn't. I could picture the smirk on his face when he said it. He said, "Well, we're really lucky at Northeastern because our finances are really solid, and we're not endowment." We're not endowment driven. We're very much a tuition based institution. And in this current crisis, that's a good thing because it means our endowment wasn't slashed. It means that, you know, how much money we have to spend is directly related to how many students are coming to school, which means we're able to adjust. And so the way you look at a school and the way you evaluate it is going to be different. And schools are going to merge together. They're going to downsize. Great big state organizations of higher education are probably going to look at smaller satellite campuses differently and about whether or not they keep them open. So I'm going to show you a couple of things that you can look at to figure out where is a good place for your family. So actually, maybe I'll go ahead and put the slide up. And so I just prepared.
I've got the slides up there for you. Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, what I was going to say before I say that is one more nerdy economics thing, right? So if you look at the Great Depression, the run on the stock markets at the end of the 20s, you know, now we talk about there's the classic bank run problem, which is, it's kind of like something called Nash's equilibrium, which means like, even if it's the wrong response, if it's the response that everybody's having, the only responsible thing to do is follow, right? So the bank run problem is consumers lose confidence in one bank and they think, oh my gosh, I got to go get my money out of that one bank because we don't know what's going to happen. And then that bank fails. And then everybody else starts panicking. And so then they run to all the other banks, which may not have been in trouble, and they pull their money out of the other banks. And so now the other banks are in trouble too. So it's a bank run problem, which is everybody follows the first and then it causes the crisis. And so with higher education, it's kind of like the inverse of a bank run crisis, which is is it the inverse, the reverse, the obverse? If we overly panic about whether or not schools are stable and we don't go to school, then the schools won't be stable and then it will exacerbate the problem. So I'm going to say, I'm going to give you guys some great questions that you can ask so that you can make a decision to go to school, because not going to school because we don't know what's going to happen, it doesn't have great long-term consequence for you as a student and as future professional, and it doesn't have great consequences for the schools either. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how to pick good schools, and we're going to get you there, right? So now that huge disclaimer, now these are some of the things that I'm recommending for my families to look at schools and consider. So these are, where's my slide? Here we go. So these are my 5 questions, and I am putting resources up at the Big Q News site about how to find these numbers. And also, if you set up a call and we talk privately, I will help you find the numbers for the schools that you're considering, or if we need to figure out what those schools are together, we can do that too. So these 5 questions are, some of them are frankly things that we should always have been considering about a school when we were looking at it years ago, 10 years ago, last year, but even more important now. And then some of them are things that you should be looking at now that I would never have had a family bother with before. So the first one is the on-time graduation rate. So, I did an exercise with a student of mine a couple of weeks ago. He's got a whole bunch of scholarship offers. I've been talking about this student online for weeks now. He's got a whole bunch of really great scholarship offers. He wrote great essays, and he's got these scholarship offers, and he didn't know how to look at the net price of a school. And so, average price for a year for the schools in his consideration was almost $60,000 a year. That's the sticker price, right? So then there's the net price, which I'll talk about in a second, which brings that number down some. But he also wasn't looking at what are the odds that he's going to graduate in 4 years at any one of these schools. So one of the schools, we went and looked at the on-time graduation rate, and on-time graduation rate depends on the school, but it's between 4 to 6 years. Most schools and the resources that I'll share with you will share with you the 4-year graduation rate, the 5-year graduation rate, and the 6-year graduation rate. Hang on a second. Okay. So you can see all 3 of those numbers, but the on-time graduation rate, whether or not that school, and these numbers, what these numbers are, guys, they're numbers that tell you whether the school basically has their act together or not. So this always mattered. It always mattered to you as a family, whether or not the school was going to get you through the program in this amount of time they promised. But now it also matters for a second reason. It still matters to you for the same reason. Is the school good at getting students finished on time? It matters to your pocketbook. But now today I'm basically also saying it also is a great indication to you of how well the school generally has their act together, because it's the schools that generally have their act together that are going to be able to have managed their finances well, to be, it's an organized institution with great leadership. Like, those are the things that are going to cause the school to survive this crisis, in addition to being a great place to learn. Did I say that in a decent way?
I think that makes sense.
So you want to look at your on-time graduation rate for all those reasons, but also if you get out a calculator and you put in a school that has a low net price, right? Maybe local satellite, well, I don't want to cast generalizations about any school, but maybe a school has a very low net price. So once all the scholarships and the tuition and everything have been discounted for you, it's going to cost you $12,000 a year, but it's going to take you 8 years to graduate. Right? That's $100,000 versus a school that might cost $50,000 a year, but it's going to take 4 years, right? That's double the money. It's $200,000, 50 times 4 instead of 12 times 8. It's double the money, but it's half the time, and it might be a better educational choice for you. So on-time graduation rate, it drastically changes how much you pay. So you've got to actually put the numbers in the calculator, the on-time graduation rate and the net price, to figure out what you're really actually going to spend and how long you're going to be spending it for. And so now, in addition to just telling you more about the health of the education you're getting, it's also telling you about the health of the school that you're planning to go spend time living at and working at. So does that make sense?
It does, Erica. We have a couple more people that joined us too. We have Mary just joined us there as well. let's keep trucking. We're about halfway through. And before I forget, I'm going to post a URL here for what, because you've joined us here on this webinar. Erica has agreed to do a one-on-one session with you guys where she can talk about your student, your particular situation. That's usually something she charges for, but we think the situation calls for merit, and you guys are here and we want to reward that. So I'm going to put a link up here in just a minute in the chat section. Oh, she's got it right there on the page, but I'll put it up anyways. It's rockstarstrategysessions.com. Now, Erica, one of the big questions we always hear from these things, I know you have a couple other points there too, but getting to some of the questions, a lot of schools have gone to the test optional. That seems to be one of the big questions out there. You talked about the viability of schools. That's one of the other pieces. We talked last week, and I think it may be still true. Maybe you have some other evidence for it. Could you talk about this being what we called a buyer's market? That is, your student applying for schools, come here in the fall, looking for joining up with a school in 2021. It might be an opportune time for them if their school is still there. Is that the case?
It very much is. So a buyer's market means that you're in a position to negotiate with whoever's selling instead of the seller being able to set their own price, right? So right now it is definitely a buyer's market in education in some ways, and depending on the institution, it has been for a while, but right now all schools, all the president, listening to conference calls of university presidents, and presidents are trying to plan around having no idea what families are going to do. So a survey, I think the survey is 2 weeks old now, but they did a survey of high school seniors asking, the families, have your plans changed related to what you think you'll do in the fall, or is the way you're thinking about applying and going to school in the fall changing? And 26% of families said that they were now considering staying home, taking a year off, going to a school nearby, or maybe planning to enroll half-time so they could work because their finances have changed, and or because they're concerned they'll get to school in the fall and then they'll be called home or sent home and have to go back to online learning and travel back across the country, or potentially not be able to get home. We're all considering all these things, right? So as a result, the presidents, the enrollment directors of schools, they have no idea how to plan, right? I mean, they have a plan that they need to meet in order to get their budgets going, and they have no idea how they're going to meet it, whether students are going to come or not. So it's a buyer's market in the sense that if you're able to say to the school, listen, I'm really coming, right? And you're going to do all those things that we talk about every year about demonstrating interest to the school, calling them, talking to them, writing an email to the admissions counselor and saying, this is my first choice, but I can't afford full price, or all these other things that you do. Thus schools have this huge incentive to admit students who are likely to come, who are likely to be able to afford to come, who are likely to be able to stay competitive academically, in other words, not flunk out of their classes and all those other things. So it's definitely a buyer's market. The downside to all of this in terms of being a buyer's market is that that also means that if you are more able to pay a higher price, I won't say full price because nobody should be affording full price, even if they could, I don't think. But if you're able to afford more, you are a more attractive student to the colleges that are, and if you look at the news headlines from the last 2 weeks, of colleges are, colleges in the UK, I think the announcement was yesterday that in the UK, schools have petitioned to the British government to subsidize all of the research at their institutions and cut the number of enrollments because they can't afford to serve all the students. So anyway, the point is it's a buyer's market, which also means that, a buyer can make a higher offer, and then they're a more attractive buyer. However, that's not really as new as we like to pretend
Right.
that it is. That's kind of been the case for a long time also. So test optional, you presented the question as a test optional question, and I answered it as an economic question. But as far as it relates to test optional, it means, hey, look, Ash, if you can study for those AP exams and you can get high scores, and if you have the ability to do the review and take that ACT test or the SAT online test, and you can get a good score, it's going to really matter, right? Test optional means, it doesn't mean we don't care about your test scores. It just means we understand if you don't have them. But if you can present great scores, it's going to make a huge difference. So do it.
Right. And I think, Erica, one of the things we talked about was this was a great moment. We kind of compared it to that rocky moment of training, right? Take this moment to get prepped, get your stuff done. And I think there'd be some very positive things to that as well. We also talked about how, look, schools are both going to be probably very understanding of the situation that you have gone through, especially if you were directly hit by COVID. But also, I think there's a moment of sort of pivoting on that and saying, you know, this is how strong I am, that I basically just kept going, right?
Yeah, and I want to I totally agree with what Justin said, right? My last slide for the last couple of weeks has basically said, learn like your life depends on it, because your life does depend on it, whether it's your physical health or whether it's your ability to build the life that you want for yourself, Ash, in the future. Learning and figuring out how to get what you need in terms of education by hook, right, or crook, or by online free Khan Academy classes, get what you need, because your life, your happiness, your health all depend on you getting the education you need. That kind, when he says rocky moment, he means like put your boots on and go. That's great advice. And going after it, however you have to go after it, is always the right thing to do. But I also want to caution and say, if you can't, because the reality is, you know, 2,000 people died yesterday of COVID, right? That's the US number alone, right? I mean, tragedy and crisis and difficulty is happening everywhere. So if you're not able to get that great ACT score, like I was encouraging you to do, colleges are also going to understand that you can't. So when I say put your boots on and go do what you got to do, I want to make sure that I also couch it and say, if you can't, it's also going to be okay, because we're all in the same boat. So I guess the point is really that we all just need to be looking in the mirror and asking ourselves to be as tough as we're able to be. And if you're doing the best you can, if you are genuinely doing the best you can as a student, as a parent, as a business owner, as a teacher, you're looking in the mirror and as your own judge, you're doing the best you can. The college is going to see that, your community is going to see that, your boss is going to see that. Just do it, right? Because if the best you can do is take care of your mom, do that, right?
And now
then
you've got
everything
an
else
automatic, you got an automatic subject for your essays, maybe, right?
Right. So I have all these things on the screen. I'm going to run through them really quickly just so that I can explain them, because I just remembered that we're broadcasting on Facebook. My God, the whole world. But these are important numbers, and I just want to say what they all mean. And then if you are here and you got the link, Rockstar Strategy Sessions, to call me later, we'll talk about them for your personal situation. So I talked already about on-time graduation rate, which is also related to the net price and figuring out how much you're actually going to pay, how much time you're going to spend, and how good the school is at delivering their education product. The second number is first year retention rate. And this is a number that is really important for telling you how happy students are in their first year. It's a number that universities track really closely. So some of the resources that I share at the Big Q Report website, these numbers are publishable, and I will show you where you can find them. You can find them at collegedata.com. You can also find them at collegereport.org. You can also find them at College Navigator. But first year retention rate is a really important number because it means how many students went home for the summer and then came back for their sophomore year. So reasons that students don't go back for their sophomore year are the classes suck, or the classes are too hard and they weren't at the right place anyway. So they didn't work with a counselor to get a really good college match where they were going to be, they had the skills and they were getting all the support that they needed, right? So maybe they're just not at the right place, or they couldn't afford to go back. It was more expensive than they thought, or this college like there was just something that didn't work for them. And so schools work really hard to make sure that students come back their sophomore year, because that first year is often really hard. And a good first year retention rate, 97% of students come back in the fall, means that the school has nailed all those things pretty well for almost all their students. So if you look at that number, that's also going to tell you how well the school has their act together. And then the third number on here is not all schools publish this number, and not all schools publish this number in the same place. But if you can get this number, the number full-time employment after 1 year or 2 years, or a year and a half, 18 months, how many of their graduates are placed in full-time employment, or how many of their students have gone directly into graduate study, that tells you a tremendous amount about the effectiveness of the school, right? Are those students well prepared for work? Are they well prepared to find work? Or in an academic sense, are they well prepared to go into a research program? So even if you don't want to go to graduate school, a number that indicates that a high percentage of graduates go straight into graduate school suggests that that school is doing a great job preparing those students for the MCAT, the LSAT, the GRE, the research programs at another institution. And we have Michelle and Ash on the line from North Carolina. I don't know where, Paula, you're calling from, but we know Ash is thinking about studying nursing. So I've worked with quite a few students who wanted to go into nursing. And this number, this graduate study placement rate, is especially important for students who are considering medicine and a couple other fields, because in order to get into a medical program or a nursing program after your bachelor's degree, you have to take those tests and you have to take those qualifying exams. Those exams are what get you into the next program, not the name on your degree, not the classes that you took at school, although that matters too. It's that MCAT number. And so if you're calling that nursing program the department at the school, and call the department chair if you have to, and say, I'm interested in knowing, how do your students do on those graduate placement exams? That number is what you want to know, right? So that's why those numbers matter. I'm going to skip over net price calculation because I think we've talked about it, and I think most people know that this number means what you actually pay versus what the published tuition price is. And that net price calculators are available on the internet, so you can get that number. So the last three things are things that I'm recommending people look at now that I didn't really recommend people look at before. So when you're looking at a school this year, you should have been looking at these top four numbers anyway. But this year, you know, Michelle was talking about her student who is in undergrad right now, the school was already prepared to be delivering online education in certain areas, certain disciplines, but studying nursing and doing your hands-on practical training is a little tough online. So I'm starting to tell my families, go look at how the school was handling online learning a year ago. So if they had online programs, like Arizona State is just winning the Olympic gold medal right now in this one, because they've been delivering online education. They've migrated some of their curriculum online already years ago. And so they do it well already. So if you were to go to this school, whichever school you're choosing, and they've been doing online learning for a while, and they kind of have it, the professors know how to do it, and they've got the technology figured out. If you get there next fall and suddenly your classes go back online again, you're in a better place than if you've gone to a little liberal arts college that's never delivered online learning before, and they're still trying to figure it out. Now, that might not matter to you, but if it does matter to you, you'd rather be in a place that's got it figured out than in a place where they're still, hammering out the kinks and problems. So now I'm recommending, how are they handling that before? Are they experienced in it? Or are they rolling it out really well right now? And the last two are, it's a little bit trickier for the average person to evaluate the financial health of a higher education institution. Quite frankly, it's hard for those of us in the industry to do that sometimes. But if you think you can interpret those numbers, go look at that, right? Go look at where the school, your dream school or your most likely school, go look at where their funding comes from. Are they historically funded by state budgets? And is the state cutting budgets? Because if so, the school's budget's going to be cut, right? Are they driven by endowment, like I talked about at the top of the hour, and their endowment has been cut? Are they tuition driven? Very likely you're going to be able to get statements from college. President may be saying we're fine or we're not fine, or, these are things that you can look at. So those are things. And then Justin, can I go another minute?
Yeah, please go 1 more minute. There you go. Got it. Keep going.
Okay, because I just want to put this, there are some things that used to be useful that maybe aren't going to be so useful this year. So we used to look at percentage of need met for financial aid, like some schools tend to meet all of their students' financial need and some schools don't. And so we used to say, if you need the school to meet all of your need, you could look at what their average is. But I don't think that historical data is going to be very useful this year because finances have changed so much. Also, average aid awards are likely to be dramatically different this year because finances are different. And acceptance rates and waitlist statistics are going to be out the door. But the most important thing I want to say here for families, I know I have moms and families on the line here. I didn't put this on the slide, but it's really important to keep this in mind. You guys, we need to have plan Bs financially for these schools. Even if you pick a great school and you get help, we look at the numbers and you pick a school that seems solid. It used to be that you could count on the financial aid offer they gave you in freshman year being the same in sophomore year, junior year, senior year, right? So if the school you have a financial aid package, that it's probably going to be the same. I don't think we're going to see major financial changes in the fall of 2020 for schools. They're going to hold themselves together. They're going to act like everything's fine. They're going to cross their fingers. But then in the fall of 2021, I think we're going to start to see schools really, really feeling the pinch. And so what they offer you may change. So you've got to be prepared that your financial aid offer could even change. Even if the school's doing fine and the online learning is awesome and they still are doing on-ground classes, you may get a different offer. So just be prepared for that. Okay, now I think I got to stop talking for a second.
No, that's fine. Look, I'm going to put a link now. One of the things that Erica has done that we could give you guys access to is a special report of all of the resources you would ever want or need around this topic. That URL there, you can copy and paste it. I noticed, for example, that Zoom has been changing things. It used to be when I paste a URL in there, it would go live, you could see the link, but that's not the case anymore.
Really?
I think because they've had a lot of bombing going on there where people are putting a lot of links in different Zooms and it's distracting everyone, or it's spam. But this is not spam, so you can see that. You just go to learn.rockstaracademics.com/big-Q. And this big Q report, maybe you want to pull it up there so people can see, Erica.
I am going to do that. I'm going to stop my share and then I'm going to pull it up. And I'll just show you guys what it looks like so we're describing this thing that may be impossible to picture. So
while she's doing that, again, if you have any questions there, please chime in. We'd love to hear from you guys as to where you are and where your student is and what they're thinking there as well. You can pop in the chat thing. If you have a specific question, you can ask it there. Or just raise your hand if you want to put, you see that says the yes, you can click on the yes button, the little green arrow checkbox there, and I'll know that to unmute you there.
Oh, cool.
All right, there we go.
I could not do this without Justin and Jean managing all this technology and everything else. I'm a Luddite. I'm on Facebook for the first time in 4 years. So, but this is just a screenshot of the new edition. It's this. If you guys go here, please go here because I've worked really hard to put all this stuff together. But I also say this is very much a work in progress. I'm not a publisher by trade. And so I've just been collecting. These are the headlines of the week, basically, that that we've collected, and lower down are the headlines of last week. And then if you keep scrolling down, these are sites you can go to for more information, where sites that are publishing the data. So the data about school closures, the data about coronavirus. And then as you keep going down, these are also some of my favorite resources for getting the information that we talk about. So these are resources for applying to college, resources for doing a search for schools, college data that I talked about, where you can get all these numbers that we just discussed. You can get them at College Data, College Navigator. Graduation rates are at collegeresults.org. So all these things are here. Please use this, please share it. It's open to the internet. Please share this with other families It's work to put together. So I really want it to be useful to people.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was looking at some of the articles there, and it'll be really interesting. Like, there is a Forbes article, why the coronavirus will kill 500 to 1,000 colleges. New York teachers tell teachers to stop using Zoom for distance learning because they were having so many issues. Yeah, it's funny. I feel myself that I can make another career, and I may have to, out of being Zoom support for my family and extended family. At any one time, I've got a junior, I've got a sixth grader, and I've got a couple younger kids here at home. My wife and I are both on Zoom, and so there's like 4 or 5 Zoom sessions going on at any one time, and the bandwidth issues are pretty tantamount. But yeah, who knew that teachers needed to be tech support for 25 families going forward on all these things? It's a little crazy.
Well, I mean, I don't have resources up here on the page yet for homeschooling, but I've been listening to the homeschool community and in the chats and talking about how they manage all this stuff, because now all of a sudden we're all thrown into managing, being our own facilities managers, our own IT managers, our own office manager, supervising ourselves, plus teaching our kids and managing all this stuff. And it's no wonder that everything is slowed to a crawl, right? One of the things that I have been noticing is that internet providers are statewide in some places offering free internet installation. So here in Nevada, I think Comcast is offering several months worth of free internet to people. Some states are doing it by need. It's a need-based thing, right? So if you're by household income, other states, we have Comcast in Nevada is just offering free internet for a couple of months. What's the other provider here in Nevada? Spectrum, I think.
Yeah.
Many of them are, and I should put those links here too, to the providers and the programs that are doing free internet.
Why don't I open it up and see? Mary, I'm going to unmute you just proactively here. And if you don't want to talk, you don't have to, but I'm just curious as to where you're coming from and what's happening there. Let me unmute real quick. Where do I have it? Well, I'm having problems to do that. Maybe she's not connected all the way.
Sometimes when folks are calling in on the phone, they can hear, but
gotcha.
They can't talk. So
Gotcha,
we won't
no
put you on
worries.
the spot if you
I'm always putting people on the spot. Now, what do you think is the next big thing to look at here? Our schools, they're kind of in this phase where a lot of colleges are basically canceling both this semester, obviously, and then spring semester, maybe even summer.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to have some clarity in the next few weeks on any of this, Erica?
No.
Okay. Oh, I was hoping for better news, but there you go. I got it. Yeah.
Well, he asked me a simple question. He asked me a yes or no question. So the answer is no. I don't think we're going to have a whole lot of clarity. I will say though, I have been really impressed with how much clarity we have gained in just a couple of weeks. My first broadcast here, I did just very spur of the moment. It wasn't planned. I didn't have a fancy microphone, none of that. But what we did do was look at the results of this president survey that they'd done. And so they'd surveyed presidents of maybe 130 colleges and universities and asked them, your campus again before the end of the spring semester. How confident are you that you'll be able to open it by the fall semester? And just this vast majority of presidents said, we don't know. And I really appreciated the survey because I appreciated the honesty of it, which is we really don't know. All the things we thought we knew 3 weeks ago about the coronavirus itself, many of those things are not true now. All the predictions we thought we were confident in about how it was going to proceed, many of them were not true. So no, I don't think we're going to have a whole lot of clarity. I think the clarity that we have is that the economic crisis is going to vastly change the financial situation for education. But two of the headlines at the top of the page are how both public school K through 12 education is being affected by the crisis and higher education is being affected. And that's going to be true for public providers of education at the K-12 level, public providers of education at the higher education level, private schools, private colleges. As I said at the top of the hour, for different reasons, the economic crisis is affecting every piece of education, just like everything else. So we are sure the one thing that we do have clarity on is we aren't going to have clarity. What we think is true might not be true. And so my advice is it's not all the same as last week and the week before, but the big point is still the same, which is focus on, for the student and for the parent, focus on why getting a higher education is or isn't the right choice for your family. So I've been advising students, seniors in college, or seniors in high school and college students. I've been advising that sort of group of young adults since 2004. And the reason I eventually left higher education to start this business was that over and over and over and over and over and over, I would meet students who'd gotten well into their second or third year of college without really connecting with what their reason was for being there. They'd picked a major, or they didn't know what they wanted to do, or, sometimes we could get away with that in the past. I don't think you can get away with it now. I think you're really taking the time right now to really search for some clarity. You can't be certain, but some clarity about, why am I going to go to college? What is the goal here for me as a career, right? Just, you got to pick something. You don't have to be sure, but you got to pick something. And why the place I'm choosing to go is a very likely place to get me where I want to be. So you have to be intentional about your goals, about evaluating the school that you're choosing and whether or not it's going to help you get to your goal. And then the intended consequence of being clear about your goal and being clear about how to find the right path to your goal is that if it changes, if the path changes, if the school closes, if online learning happens, you still know what the goal is. So it's way easier to stay focused on the goal if you have to go on a detour, or you have to go, okay, my local state university isn't the right choice next year, so now I've got to find what's the next best thing. Then if you don't have a goal, then if something drastically changes next year and you didn't have a goal, now you have no set of guideposts or guidelines for how am I going to do it now? So my overall advice is learn like your life depends on it. Learn about yourself, learn about your goals, learn about what you need to reach those goals. And so when we don't have clarity, because Justin said, how are we going to have clarity? No, we're not going to have clarity, right? So we don't have clarity about the other side of the street. You can be in control of what you can be in control of, which is your side of the street, which is how much you know about what you need and what you want. That's the best response to not having clarity that we can have, Justin, I think.
Yeah, I think that's about right. We're almost at the top of the hour, Eric. I want to be a good steward of everyone's time. Again, any questions, you're welcome to shoot us. But again, if you go to rockstarstrategysessions.com, you can get to the calendar that she has up there, and just click on it, book a time. She'd love to chat with you about your situation. And again, that's for a little gift for you guys joining us on the webinar there. And we're going to have probably in the coming months some online tools and resources that we think are going to be really valuable. And
Oh my
so
gosh.
appreciate you guys joining us today. Anything else there, Erica?
Well, you just reminded me, I never talk about this, not on any of these 4 broadcasts, but for several years, Rockstar Academics has been developing online digital learning stuff. I mean, that's actually what we do. Online digital courses where we guide families and students all over the country through the application process. We just take them step by step. And it's a digital course, kind of like the ones, not like Ash is doing in her high school, but probably very much like her big sister's doing in college. You just online lessons with video lessons and workbooks. So we have all those programs. I don't have any of them up right now because I think it's really important for us, like I said, to focus on the real basics first. But we do have all that stuff. It's coming. It's being launched. And so stay tuned. Stay with us. Come back next Saturday. And please book one of these calls. I'm really enjoying all the conversations I'm having with families right now around the country. Privately during the week after these broadcasts. I'm learning a lot. It's really great.
Guys, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll catch you online, hopefully catch you very soon on college campus. Thanks.
Thank you guys so much for coming today.